Hello and welcome to the after party. Your hosts are the Great Order and No White Guilt. As for the crown winner of last week, the crown goes to our very own Roy Danton for gifting a total of 80 Prometheus Rising dollars. Congratulations and adulations, my dear brother. Thank you. In second place was Marjorie, gifting $40. Congratulations and thank you as well. Financially gift on Entropy at 15%, which will be up in a moment, where you can also watch the stream and ask and vote on questions. Or you can financially gift on Cash App at 6%. Jared and I evenly share the financial gifts with our guests on the after party. Today, we have on tap the always entertaining Unwashed. Nick, please introduce yourself to the audience and let folks know where they can find you. And then Mr. George will take us into the conversation.
Oh, hello, lads. It's a pleasure to be back. It's always a pleasure to be in your company. You are some of the coziest hosts in the business. So I'm really looking forward to today. Where can you find me at the moment? It changes every single week because of this censorship palaver. So we're going to go into it in a bit. You used to be able to find our work at vilemedia.co.uk, but you can't anymore. You can now find it at wearescum.com. And I'd say the most reliable place to follow me is dlive.tv/unwashed. I have YouTube channels, but I'm not going to be promoting them because there's no point at this stage. They treat us so poorly, so I won't even tell you about them.
Yeah, I might as well say right at the beginning, we were talking about this before we went on air, how our listeners will know this, but there's always new people. We welcome new people. It's about the community. It's about, if you want to use the metaphor of like bands, it's about the band, it's about the artist, the show. So YouTube's just one platform, one venue. If you heard your favorite artist was playing at a new theater across town next Friday, you wouldn't show up at the old theater. You go to the new one where they're playing. So we just have to get used to being nimble. Of course, we have the afterparty.tv. All our links are there, and usually it streams embedded right there on our site. But yeah, we're really excited to have Nick back. He was on tap first back in December, where we got some of his background and how he got into all of this. And Nick, we've been wanting to have you on, like I said, just with what was formerly known as Vile. A lot of what you're doing there is stuff that's near and dear to us too. We're really interested in the arts and retaking popular culture and all kinds of stuff with that. Obviously, all of us are friends with the Whack Pack White Art Collective. So we wanted to do that anyway. We just happened to send you a message inviting you on tap like the day of or the day right after that Vile got attacked. So we were going to talk about all of this anyway, but why don't we just start for the sake of bringing people up to speed with how Vile was attacked, the whole story about that, and how you're relaunching this Scum.
Okay, well, I mean, I'd be lying if I said that I didn't anticipate some attacks on what we were doing. Vile was essentially built with this product will self-destruct in 10 weeks label slapped on the front of it. It was not built to last. But what it was, or what it ended up being, because what it started as and what it ended up being were two completely different things. It started as a funny joke, and then it ended up as an actual nationalist hub where we were hosting articles that we're really proud of. It's not written by me. It's written by people who are submitting stuff who didn't even previously have an outlet to do it because they don't make videos, which is the one where it thrives at the moment. There's there's a few blogs, but I think the more that are happening that are poking at different avenues, the better. The more people that are creating across the board, the better. So it's amazing that sprung up. And it ended up being sort of a gift to, our folks, because it was just something for them to enjoy. It's like a sigh of relief when you read something or watch something funny that's from our perspective. You're just like, I'm home. That's how I feel every time I discover some new art from our scene, rather than the intellectual stuff. So anyway, what actually happened as a fallout from all of this Black Lives Matter stuff? what's the best way to explain this? I mean, these protests have got people genuinely playing a game of hunt the racist. So enemies from my old city, my old life that I've moved away from and I have no contact with, because this is such a liberal left-wing city. There are people that think the same way as me, but it's completely under wraps. They cannot let anyone know because there is a thriving Antifa network there. We actually, in Cardiff, they actually had like one of the biggest Black Lives Matter protests in the UK the week that all that kicked off. So people,
we're the closed-minded ones, though. Everybody.
Oh yeah.
We're the closed-minded ones.
I actually had to move to. That's how open-minded they are to other people's opinions. But so basically they spotted, me. I was very surprised that they hadn't picked up on the channel and everything that I'd been doing until Black Lives Matter. But they decided Black Lives Matter, and I was like, well, White Lives Matter. No, you mustn't say things like that. And I also couldn't keep my mouth shut on Facebook that week. I thought that it was too important. I had previously been like, this is a useless battleground, but I just couldn't stand what I was reading, so I fired off my thumbs. And it got very, very heated, and eventually some people from my old life contacted Squarespace and said, this is full of hate. This is full of hate. There's so much hate here. And I think Squarespace is an Israeli company. Just for those
that don't know, that would be your hosting, kind of like a plug and play hosting.
Yeah, we were. It was because we threw it together in a day, and it's the kind of thing that we should have figured out a workaround for, and we will. But it was a sort of quick rush project, so that got taken down. But where the way that I'm used to operating now is you punch me, I punch back 10 times harder. Obviously, in a creative sense, I'm never advocating violence. But
yes,
yeah, exactly. And Vile was built as an in-joke for all of us. What's happened there? He's disappeared.
It's the ghost of the machine.
Yeah,
this has been happening.
It's his art.
On an old machine.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah, this is. I'm demonstrating art to you as it's happening.
Beautiful. It's a bit.
So I'm on an old machine here, and so anyone who's interested, hopefully next week's tap, I have a new machine, and I'll be broadcasting from much better processing power, and I'll be able to show my face. I might have to do this in Avatar, but go ahead.
Hey, you said the show must go on. You've got to play the gig. Doesn't matter about the tech.
Right.
Yes, okay, so
I'll try the camera in a few minutes, but go on.
Yeah, no worries. So Vile, no more. And both me and Lucy were actually quite comfortable with that. She was completely comfortable with it, whereas I needed a bit of convincing, because I'm just really happy that we managed to create like a hub that had other people involved. I had this sort of sense of responsibility of having to pick, right, what articles are coming out, and these submissions, I'm kind of accountable to these people, and it's quite nice. Mm-hmm. So we've now relaunched as wearescum.com, which it has the specific intent of being much less nukeable. So you go to it, and where's the hate? It's not written with that ironic take the mick out of absolutely everything who's not us attitude. It's meant to be presented in a way where you could send it to basically anyone and it would look respectable. It's exactly the same arguments as we were using before, exactly the same position, just careful with the language. And our goal is, and we're also trying to focus much more on the art and culture, because I'm seeing the conversation go a bit mainstream in 2020 around. I know it's not really what we, it's not a big win for us, but seeing anyone in Hollywood saying, "Yeah, I support Donald Trump," is like, it's just movement in a certain direction against the leftist monoculture, which is the real thing. People have noticed, they're fed up with. It's completely infected the entire entertainment industry. So we're not trying to appeal to people who are the whole way there anymore. We're casting a very, very wide net, and it's anyone who's noticed how the left is acting. And to be honest, that's in purely racial terms at the moment. You can't,
it's how anti-white
really deny it.
Yeah.
So we're ripe for the pickings right now.
Is there going to be anywhere where the old material that was on Vile, like those writings, those blog posts, will be cataloged or put up, or is it just clean slate?
Well, there's a selection of the best ones on culture, I'd say, that are already on We Are Scum. And I am talking with the other guys in the writers' room going, right, well, there was clearly a need for what we were doing before. So even though we've sorted out this new clean project, it would be nice for us to sort out a continuation of the same ethos and the same thing. And the comedy shows that we've been doing on a Sunday night, that's pretty much going to stay the same tone, where it's directed at our guys and it's meant to make our people laugh.
Yeah, I really admired and really got a jolt of energy myself when I saw Vile come out, because it was fresh. It was really, really well done. You know, no one could go after it saying these guys don't know how to use media and don't know how to use aesthetics. So they couldn't attack us on that end. And it's for us. We know they're going to attack us inherently just on our frame of reference. But the energy, you bring a lot of energy. I appreciate that. I've told you that privately too. And we can't be scared to say those things. You can't be too cool to lift other people up, to celebrate them. I told Nick, his energy, his pedal to the metal attitude is inspiring to me. And I know that it's inspiring to other people. And I appreciate that. I want to say that publicly. I got a jolt. I got ideas when I saw what you were doing with Vile. And this is how this grows. We all inspire each other. What about, I do have to ask about the name. So what Scum, is that obviously has a negative connotation? Is that just kind of this ironic claiming of what the other side's going to call us?
Well, sort of. I mean, there's a lot of meanings in all this. I'm going to chuck it back at you, the compliments in the inspiration department, particularly sorry, I've nodded my head the wrong way, but Jason's doing this pretty much constantly. Is just trying to lift people's spirits and get them involved, and it's quite something to see. So props to both you gentlemen for keeping going. You certainly got me to this point, so thank you.
Thank you.
But yeah, the name. So I mean, Vile, which I got on me here, should be quite obvious. That was already a meme. With us, it'd become like a bingo card spot every time a journalist used the word vile. And then I just woke up one Saturday morning and realized that our main enemy, you only had to change one letter. Because Vice have now published their article that was coming after me, Lucy, and Mark. And it's quite something to see.
Tell us about that for a second, too. That plays into it. Vice just published this hit piece.
Yeah, this is where the whole thing came from. We got an email that was from Vice that said, we're coming after you, and the article is going to come out next week. And so I responded with a video about the journalist who'd sent us this, with a lot of help from Lucy, because she already knew a lot about him. And then she did some more expansive pieces, but basically covering the same network, the same group of people. And then we launched this, and we're still, I follow this guy on Twitter and he follows me. So we've got DMs open, and I kept messaging him going, wakey, I think we're beating you at the moment. You might have to put out your article some point soon. And I don't think it's any coincidence that the week that Vile went down, the Vice article went up. I think they were very, very scared about alerting people to us, and then them discovering that we'd already served them with a big whopping great dunk.
Yeah, and if we read the piece, I'll go find a link to it. We'll put it in the chat, and we'll put it in the show posts after on our website. It's a textbook example of why Jason always talks about, we do not use their language. We don't use the names they give themselves, because the article starts, it's laughable, by something like neo-Nazi organization, vile media, and you're called that N-word, our N-word, several times then throughout the article. It's relentless. They do not give us the names. They do not call us by the names of our choosing, so we will not call them by the names of their choosing. We have to be able. That's, of course, what Nick means when he says metaphorically punching back and things like that. It's just playing smart, and it's not being a wimp.
Well, I think a big part of it with Vice is it's actually an incredibly easy target, because they're an already collapsing company that have annoyed an awful lot of people. They've been pushing degeneracy very openly. It's not been subversive or clever at all. For I don't know how long they've been around, about 20 years, but they've just been pumping disgusting filth out, and they've had to increase how gross it gets. So it's now at this point you look at it, and any decently adjusted person looks at it and goes, no, I am repulsed by that. I'm not looking at that. But it's funny because they used to be pushing at the edges. This used to be stuff that was on the fringes, but it's now, in the mainstream. So they have to justify it morally. They have to say, no, this is good. We're upholding goodness with the, they're right there on the drag queen story hour and all of these trends like that are just sick and horrible. So it's very easy to go after. I mean, the Twitter response to when they posted the original article is just our people, and it's not like my people that were following what I was doing. It's just people know what Vice is. So
yeah,
they become a useful target. Oh, sorry.
I'm sorry. I retweeted that before we went on air, just so people could see the comments on the tweet under the Vice tweet. They're amazing. It's 100% our perspective.
Yeah. It's been retweeted a lot more times than it's been liked. So I don't think Vice is even it's not a popular outlet for leftists. It's just a laughing stock at this point. And it's targets like this are quite a good unifier for us to build bridges much wider than our scene. There's two things we got to foster. We got to foster pride in the people that are where we are, and the art and creativity and those kind of networks get everyone talking. But we also need to make sure that we're as appealing as possible to people that are starting to think in this way, or some of the way there, and are kind of adjacent to us, because the number of people there must be enormous, particularly right now with what's been going on. You have to think in
that's the silver lining. That is the silver lining in this. We don't want to see statues coming down. We don't want to see people getting hurt. It's a very, very intense time here in the United States, as I'm sure you can understand.
Yeah,
but that is the silver lining in this.
No, please go ahead. Finish your thought, Jared.
No, I was pretty much done.
Well, just to say, last night, a stone's throw from where I am, they pulled down the statue of a Confederate general in Washington, D.C. So in the nation's capital, they allowed this mob to surround a statue. And now these people, it's important for folks to know, and I'll just very briefly say here to touch upon this parallel thought, is that these are were the folks who fought for the Confederate States of America when they seceded from the United States were Americans. They were the brothers and sisters and cousins and mothers and fathers of people in the rest of the United States. And in fact, the descendants, there's several books on this, the descendants of the American patriots who are well known, and when the United States seceded from England, or it was the United States, the colonies seceded from the crown, those people, their descendants came and fought for the Confederacy. Few people know that. So there have been statues that have gone up all over, including the United States, the northern states, what they were called in that time. And those statues are being pulled down. So there was one of these statues revered by all Americans, and they literally wrapped ropes around it. The police just watched. This is white erasure. They are absolutely erasing us from the civilization we created. And they pulled that statue down, and then they set fire to it. They urinated on it. And then the plan was to drag it off to the Potomac and dump it in the. So this is a stone's throw from where I am. And so you might say to yourself, and this is the only reason why I felt like it was important to just pause for a moment here. Well, that was a Confederate general. And then I make the point that these people are seen as Americans. They're American heroes, even though they seceded from the United States and fought against the invasion. George Washington, the day before yesterday, a statue of George Washington had a stars and stripes wrapped around the head. That set on fire. The statue pulled off onto the ground. it's set on fire again and urinated and defecated on. So this is about white people. This is about Western civilization. This is about white erasing us in every form and iteration. And days earlier, it was up in, where was it? In Pennsylvania, I think it was. They pulled down the statue knowingly of an abolitionist. So this is where like the abstractionists, like the conservatives and the like, they would say, oh, they would make apologies. Well, it's just this or it's just that group. Because in this, of course, we know it as the anti-white narrative. It's because in the anti-white narrative, they were seen as the bad guys. No. The anti-whites pulled down an abolitionist, even though he's supposedly is anti-white, perhaps as the rest of them. And yet he was a white man, so he had to go. George Washington, the nation's founder. And so they actually know that last night they were actually talking about, well, are they going to tear down Jefferson, because Jefferson had hundreds of slaves when he was alive, and he wrote about the differences between the races and everything. So, folks, this is white erasure. It's just a matter of time, and it gives us the opportunity, as horrible as it is, as we're talking about here, to reach our brothers and sisters. And we're going to have to, with what Nick is doing and the art that's being created by White Art Collective is absolutely critical to that function of reaching our brothers and sisters, because we have to be building this culture. So I couldn't be happier with the work that you all are doing. We have to. It's like I said, things are going to get a lot worse as we make them get better. So please, the both of you, and I don't know, Nick, if you had any thoughts on what I just had to share or not, please.
Yeah, I do. Because I'm interested in how my dad feels about all of this, because I talked to him about this stuff, but he's milder than where we are. But he's fascinated by the irony of each statue that they're choosing to go after, because he's like, well, this was actually a great philanthropist, or if they actually looked into the history and found out what he did for the slaves, they'd be very surprised. Stuff like this. There's a lot of irony behind which statues are being chosen, because these were not evil men by any measure, regardless of the people they were, treating. But I've been saying to him, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. You need to get this through your head. It doesn't matter. They don't care. And it's a real sick irony, because they keep telling us that we all need to educate ourselves. And the fact is, we actually have. And when you look into it, it's an awful lot more nuanced. Is probably the wrong word. It's just our ancestors were nowhere near as evil as they're being touted at the moment. I mean, it's the same people that we are. So the idea that are people who are currently so altruistic, who are bending over backwards for everyone else, the idea that just a few generations back we were bloodthirsty, domineering people that just wanted everyone else to suffer, it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense at all. But the nut that I'm trying to crack is like, is saying they don't care about the same things that you do. We see these logical contradictions. You have to just notice that there's this enormous swathe, and it's a coalition. There's a lot of white people in there, but it's every type of minority as well. The LGBTs are very represented in this spread of revolutionaries, but none of them actually care about the history. They just care about destruction, and it's just history repeating itself. And I think when you point out stories about like Puritanism and how much was lost to history during that period, how much stuff got burnt, there's whole periods of history where you have no idea what the art looked like because it was all burnt. And the fear is that that's about to happen again. It has started happening.
I'm so glad that you see this lucidly, because that's where our artists need to be. If they have any misunderstanding about anti-whiteism, about anti-whites and what's actually taking place in the world, they're not going to be able to create art that is going to be the most effective. It's like misdiagnosing a sickness and then trying to come up with a medicine to cure it. If you don't understand the sickness, then it doesn't matter how brilliant your medicine is, it's not going to affect the sickness. You have to understand the sickness to be able to create the medicine that will speak to that sickness. And our people, they don't have, because they've been deprived of it, a language to defend themselves and to understand the world as it actually exists. This is where, a lot of the folks, certainly our older folks, many of them are mired in a lens that has made it impossible for them to see the world as it actually is. So if we have art and culture that we are creating that can appeal to them in a way that enables them to see the world for the way it actually is, it's not just going to be the statue of Pickett, Confederate statue, but it's all white statues. It doesn't matter what they did in the past. It's all white history. It doesn't matter if it was said to be such a boon for non-white people. It is all problematic, and we need only look to the historical examples. We don't have to look far. We can look to yesterday, and we can see them. A day before yesterday, we can see them taking down Washington, and the day before that, an abolitionist. And we can look to Saint Domingo, now called Haiti, and the kinds of things that they were saying. And we can look to South Africa today, and we can see that now they even say that science is oppressive, something the white man came up with. Of course, that may or may not be true for the YouTube censors that are watching. Everybody has to check it out for themselves. But I mean, they're saying mathematics. I mean, you can research these things and see that they are saying, well, all of that has to go. Well, why would that have to go? Why would science see, this is where a lot of our brothers and sisters out there, the vagues, they would get really confused. They would say, well, I don't know. Why would science have to go? Why would math? That would benefit these people, even if we exist. It's because it came from you, Whitey. It's because it came from you. And since it came from you, and since it's a part of your biospiritual projection, it's got to go according to the anti-whites. So that is why they're doing these things. And for those out there who are confused about whether or why a white person would be participating in this, they are embracing the antithesis of the biospirit inside of them. Of course, they can be defective people as well, and so that can be a consequence of why whites would be anti-white. But ultimately, it's an embracing for a white person, certainly a white artist, of the antithesis of what they feel inside themselves. So a sickness that they end up embracing, a darkness that they end up embracing. And that's why they are participating in this sort of thing and creating anti-white art. So it really just, I am really ebullient over the fact that so many of our artists now, including you, Nick, see this lucidly for what it actually is. It's not some weird abstraction that they just disagree with some ideas but they really, it's about white people and white erasing us. I toss it back.
Well, I realized I never explained where the name Scum came from, but I think I can tie it back to what Jason's just said quite neatly, because the name came from, we noticed the hashtag Scum Media trending in the UK, and that's directed at the entire mainstream media, but squarely at the BBC as well. So we've sort of adopted that because scum is something that both sides actually scream at each other all the time. People from the nationalist side have been going around screaming that at journalists for years.
That's a bit new. So maybe to us Americans, that nuance was lost on us a little bit. Okay.
No. Scum is, it's got a long history of just being shouted by British crowds at anyone that they disapprove of, whether it's the left or the right. They shouted at each other. But Scum Media specifically is the one where Lucy spotted it and was like, we need to run with this. And I was like, okay, cool.
I see.
But the way that what part of my goal at the moment is, not just with that, but I've been doing it in my live streams, my groiping ones, is get the idea that the BBC is anti-white into the public's head, because anti-BBC sentiment is huge, and the agenda at the moment is so obvious. So one example is we'd started watching what they upload to YouTube, because some of the videos don't actually do very well. So if you want to flood the comment section, we can make a significant impact with 30 or 40 people. We can flip the ratio and mean that anyone who goes to that video, anyone who sees this video from the BBC, who's, the biggest broadcasting company in our country, they're going to see comments from all of us about how the BBC is anti-white. And I'm seeing it stretching out on Twitter. I'm seeing people that do not sit where we are, who are scared of people like us, using the phrase anti-white. I'm even seeing subversive civnat sites like Spiked, which I'm sure is explicitly set up to prevent people from getting to where we are. Because I know I've looked into who's funding it. I don't think it's an innocent operation, but they have had to concede to using terms like anti-white because they just have to keep up. You can't describe the world in its current state, and how the BBC works and how it panders to minorities and always demonizes us and always blames us for all of multiculturalism's problems, even though we're the victims. We are the victims. They need to release the grooming gang report. The British public is still aware of this. I think about 70 to 75% of our country is still native Brits. So it's just about spreading the word. The more the BBC attacks us, the more it wakes people up, and we just need to provide an alternative. We're already there. We just need it to grow.
Are you hearing the term non-white at all? Because that's something that we prefer here, that the minority does conjure up, as Jason has broken down, this sympathy. It garners sympathy in people's eyes. And it's also worldwide not accurate because
it's untrue.
Ratio numbers, we've become we've become a minority in worldwide figures.
Well, it's an absolute untrue narrative. So yeah, good on you for calling me out. I know that you guys are very, very careful with language and thinking about what it does to people. And I came from another world quite recently, so I have no qualms about being called out on this kind of stuff.
Look, man, we're all learning together, like we said in the beginning. Yeah. Now, I wish the chat on DLive and on YouTube, I remembered, and I posted about this earlier, happy midsummer. Today's the summer solstice, of course.
Yeah.
It used to be as important as Yule for our people. And I think one of the things that we need is, just in terms of symbols, our calendar again, our festivals, because if we really were immersed in who we are, and I'm not going to get into this now, but the brief liner notes is, it's not just about recreating the past, it's tapping into the eternal spirit of our people, and there will be manifestations that are appropriate for our day and our age. But all that to say, happy midsummer to everyone. And on this idea of keeping focused on the light amidst all this darkness, amidst all this craziness. So I really want to dig into you, Nick. We're really, both Jason and I, excited to get into talking more about popular culture, the arts, aesthetics. Why don't we begin by just talking about what prompted you mentioned the ethos of Vile, now Scum, the aesthetic, your mashup videos, what your vision was for that, where that comes from, and then we'll take it from there.
Okay, so I guess if we're talking about the videos, the 6-part series that we did, so we did one called Vile, and now the next one is Scum. So it's on Sundays at 7 on my DLive channel. And yeah, the last one, it was sort of hyperdrive propaganda. It was like a best of from all of our community, all sorts of 4chan memes, all sorts of blunders from the mainstream media, but also loads and loads of references to nostalgic things that we think are missing now. Because yeah, there's a comedy is being erased right now this week. I don't know if you guys have been following this story, but a whole bunch of our shows got cancelled off Netflix. So these would be The League of Gentlemen, Little Britain. What are some others? The chat might be able to help me on this.
I wasn't aware. I know a friend of mine used to be very into Little Britain, so they're not 2020 approved anymore.
No, they're now problematic, but it's very interesting when you drill into why, because they've played this gigantic overreach where they've gone for shows which really you'd struggle to call racist. It would be difficult, especially to a normal person. Normal people have looked at this and thought, for God's sake, this has to stop. Which is very, very encouraging. But what I've noticed is they're not erasing comedy that's problematic by any reasonable standard. They're erasing the best British comedy that we have with the clearest sense of identity. So The League of Gentlemen, which went this week, a very strange thing to say, because I've got a DVD box set of it. It doesn't matter. I've still got it. But the reason that show is so special to me and so many other British people is every character on it they've got a thick northern accent, and it's built for us. It is some of the least multicultural comedy you can imagine, because the characters are very nuanced and carefully crafted so that they're not the joke isn't, totally clear. It's not just a one-dimensional thing. It reminds you of all sorts of people that you've met in generally rural places as well, not the city folk. But it was so well done, and Faulty Towers is another one that went this week. So to remove and Little Britain obviously was kind of a weird celebration of aspects of us that we're normally ashamed of. It was a way of the British people having a catharsis with that. I generally thought it was overrated, but still they've got rid of it, so now I defend it. Anyway, yeah, it was just a list of shows that really matter to native Brits. That was all it was. It was not offensive stuff. So it's been really timely to go and look at all this comedy from the 90s, or footage of like Johnny Rotten sticking it to the establishment, all of this stuff, all of anyone who was a threat to the the men at the BBC is good in our books. So we're sticking all of that in there as well.
And what about just the general aesthetic of your approach? There's, as we talked about at the beginning, there's a real raw energy to it, and like I said, it's raw, but it's very well done. The video editing, it's polished, but not in a saccharine kind of way. Like, what are the antecedents to all that you've said? And again, very inspiring. You've said on streams that it's not like you knew video editing in and out. It was like,
Uh-oh.
All right.
Don't hear you, brother. Nick, can you hear Jared?
No, I can't. Do you want to take over for a second?
Well, was he in the midst of a question that you thought you could answer?
I didn't catch enough of it to know
That's
what
the
the
kind of energy.
was.
Well, we're talking about the energy of the
Vision.
Jared, did you?
Yeah, no, sorry. I've got my train back. I reckon I can
Okay.
talk from where he left off. Yeah, talking about the energy. I've spoken to Mark about this. He said once you get to know me, you'll know that I'm fueled by anger and rage, and it's fair. It makes a lot of sense, doesn't it? Because it's a hard narrative. He's obviously been aware of this stuff for 20 odd years, but it's a very hard narrative to get your head around and learn that you're in such small numbers, of a percentage of the world that's aware of this stuff. And we're so attacked. It's just from all angles. But it just makes you more driven, because I always know that I'm arguing on the side of truth. It's a sort of faith thing that I know that I'm not arguing for anything immoral. So I'm going to keep going. And the louder you get, the louder I'm going to get. So you've got to be careful to not let stuff affect you in the wrong way, because you can take all this badness in and turn it out into energy. That is essentially my story, is that having to live in a increasingly anti-white city eventually just snapped me, and I came out the other side and went, right, I know what I'm doing now. And I'm not stopping, because I'm angry at you lot for treating me like this and treating everyone else like this. Like, it's so sickening that and it's such a lovely community that I've ended up involved with. Everyone's cheering each other on.
Yeah.
So no regrets. But I think the fire you were describing just earlier, Jason, I think until you come to the conclusions that we do, it's just confusion. So it's quite hard to be creative. I chatted to Hyreth about this, because both of us felt unable to write lyrics and write meaningful music until we were at this point. She hadn't done anything no music that she's released or that she was proud of until coming to our conclusions. And I was basically the same. I started learning this stuff, and suddenly I had something that I actually had to write about. Whereas before that, it was like, oh, I want to be an artist, but I don't know what my muse is.
Right.
Now,
right. You have a mission. Right. You have a purpose. I just want to quickly say before Mr. George continues, and the question is this. Since you you put the finger on from your a consequence of your own emotions, that you are censored, that we are shut down, that we are slandered, that etc. There are many points that we experience and have experienced in our lives that we're made to feel like if you care about white well-being, that you're somehow evil as a consequence of doing this. Do you or have you considered using these experiences that everyone who is white has had to endure as veins through which that you can reach people with your art? It's especially like things like comedy and things of this nature. I could just throwing something out that's coming to mind, like a scene where if you could have a comedy show, a scene where the anti-whites are slovenly and disgusting, people, and then they attempt to make the protagonist in the story feel like he's evil because he cares about all things that are wholesome and good, or what have you, and then maybe he has some kind of a really sort of rotten quip for them that puts them in their place. Or have you thought about any of that? Or
yes, there's a point that I've been making a lot on my streams, which is that we are in such a wonderful place for satire, because it's a complete inversion of the natural order. They want everyone to be trans, or they appear to want that. They want more and more people to do things that we're not supposed to do to ourselves. I'll put it that way. They're not living in accordance with nature. They're saying all the nations should be mixed up. That's equally not in accordance with nature. All of this stuff. But there's levels to it in the art world and popular culture, where like Keith Woods has done fantastic work on this, where pointing out that irony has become so celebrated that it's more important than beauty itself. So I'll give you. Do you guys know the artist Banksy?
Yeah, it sounds familiar.
Yeah, so he's a graffiti artist from Bristol, but he's recently been voted the most influential artist in the UK, or the most popular artist in the UK, and it's crap. It's all awful. He's got a 20-year history of it, and it's all ironic. It's all like, here's a stencil of like a little girl with a balloon, and then there's a tank there as well. But none of it is aiming for beauty. None of it's genuinely aiming to be like a good
Did he
painting.
do the one? Did he do the one of Trump and Putin French kissing?
Maybe.
I know there was a street artist that did that.
That looked exactly like it could have been one of his. But what I find interesting is if the most popular artist in our country isn't an artist, he's a satirist, what does that say about the state of things? Like, so we really want a return to mastery and craft. So that's something I'm looking into on like We Are Scum. Is we've done a artist profile with Hyreth, who's obviously a singer-songwriter, and is trying to get better and better at it, as all proper artists should be. But next week I'm going to put out something. This guy Kaelin, he runs Dramatic Scotland Creations, which is a company that makes stuff like that's on the wall behind me, which is really beautiful, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
And do you see how like there's no irony going on here? It's just stunning. And so one of the ways that this works for satire is we get to look at artists that are currently being touted as brilliant or geniuses. We get to point at it and go, no, that's terrible. Let me explain to you why that's terrible. And also in a way where it's like, you already knew this was terrible. You already knew it was a big joke and we were all pretending. The emperor seriously has no clothes in the art world and the music world and movies, and everyone knows this. And it's just on a few people on our side to go, yeah, guys, really
absolutely
bad. Really bad.
If memory serves, Nick, I think the first time that you were on back in December, I believe we talked about aesthetics being kind of a proto red pill. I know for me, that is what happened in my own life. I believe we discussed that a little bit. But yeah, I saw it happening with kind of the hipster thing where everything was so ironic. I literally read articles in like hipster music blogs where they would admit they don't even know why they like something. Like they lost, some of these people who were deep in that scene just lost all points of reference in themselves. They had no core. By the way, I had to go to my phone. I don't know if my audio is a little different. As I said in the beginning, this is my last week on an old machine. So next week, new computer, should be a lot better. So I was on Avatar. My computer was doing its own art project, and now just totally crashed. But this is all perfect fodder to go into something else. I'm really keen to hear your thoughts on this, Nick, because you're really good at this with what you're doing with Scum, the old Vile videos. And that is to continue on something we've already been discussing. You doing these videos with Lucy, these mashups, taking clips from TV shows, as you were saying, taking bits of music, of British music of the last several decades, and representing. You don't have to do much to show that in recent memory, in living memory, that all of this stuff was just implicitly our thing. And it wasn't, no one would have admitted that, but even like Britpop in the 90s, I remember you saying on a stream, the bands are all white, all the actors and the extras in the videos essentially are white. And everyone knows it's just a white thing. It didn't need to be said. Obviously, during those times, it was already, all this nonsense going on now was percolating underneath the surface. But I'm really curious to hear your thoughts on, aside from the overt stuff, which you're really good at with getting the groypers all riled up, I want to hear about the subtle ways. We talked about how a lot of this is about outreach to the vagues right now and the people who are kind of tiptoeing around this, of how just without political arguments, without showing crime stat reports, how just the aesthetics, just the feel of our popular arts and culture feel like home to us. They feel comfortable, and how that can be a big wake-up call for more of our people coming home and getting healthy.
So all these words you're using, like coming home, and I see the word cozy used all the time whenever it's a pleasant stream as opposed to like a combative stream. Everyone gets that warm feeling that they're, among their own. In terms of like the aesthetic angle of it, it's. I mean, I'll give another shout out to the two of you, because I wasn't able to put it into words until I started listening to you guys. The key term is biospirit, which you both talk about all the time, and it reframed everything, because
that's all Jason. I like to give credit where credit is due. That's Jason's.
You do still talk about the same concept in the way that you describe art and music and stuff. It's built on, it comes out of what's in us and our people. And it was this idea, because I went to a folk festival last year, and it was nourishing to the soul. It was exactly what I needed, because the people that I'd been around, it was not that kind of music. It wasn't traditional, so it was wonderful to reconnect with my roots. But every single artist still gave it a bit of Orange Man bad during their set. They were all paying woke lip service. And, I rolled my eyes every time this happened, but I still thought, you're actually still fighting our battle without realizing it. Just by being here, just by playing traditional songs, traditional instruments to this appreciative white crowd. Sorry, it's not very diverse here. You're upholding exactly the kind of things that we're talking about all the time. So, and then I came across the way that you guys would talk about it, and it's made me go back and look at all these music scenes, like all these little subgenres, which are not overtly political, or might even, like all of the bands might be explicitly anti-white, left-wing in their social media posting, but the art they make is white because they are, and the music that comes out of them is just like that, and it's tainted to more or less degrees. There are white people that go out and make god-awful hip-hop and try and twerk, and obviously that has nothing to do with who we naturally are. But there are also white people who will do the woke virtue signaling, but then they're working on incredibly complicated pentatonic music with a group of 5 of them that really pushes them and is designed and is aiming for beauty, and it's like, I'm afraid you come under our umbrella because you're aiming high and you're white guys. So
Right.
I support it all, you know what I mean? I'm not bothered on this left-right thing, because who goes to musicians to know about politics? What's that?
Right.
Yeah, they shouldn't. But what about how you're kind of representing it and repackaging it for our guys?
Well, yeah, you can tell a narrative surprisingly easily. It's this new technique. It's not like I was the first to do this, but I really enjoy finding pairing clips together. So you've got one person saying something, and then you've got a reaction to it that's cut from something else, and they can all be in jokes. And then you put the suitable music with it. It's just making a musical collage. I've always loved sort of mashup culture. I've always been entertained when someone slammed 2 songs together to make something new. I don't know. It's probably just a personal thing that I've always been fascinated by. There's not an enormous amount of deep thought. It's you just go with it. You try and make something. You edit out anything that's not funny enough. The way our process works is Lucy fills up a big folder of stuff. I try and make 25 minutes out of it, and then I toss it back over to her, and she makes it as I don't know. She puts that edge on it, does some chopping, makes it look sleeker, and then it's good to go. But I don't know. We haven't actually thought about it too consciously. It's become its own thing.
Yeah. Again, I just appreciate how there's this implicit, like, hey guys, this is ours. This is ours too. I mean, as much as there's a place for all of it. You mentioned the folk festival. I do my Red Ice videos about some of our customs and traditions and symbols, and try to tie that to what's going on now. But as much as there's all that trad posting and wheat fields, and that's great, and that has a place. We all grew up in this modern world. You know, we grew up listening to these bands or watching these TV shows, and we need to be able to separate out kind of the poisons from it, but still, like you were saying, recognize that there's this general trajectory and this general sensibility that's still ours, and it's us, and it couldn't have been made by anyone else. And when you get that feeling, when you click into that, it's like everything else falls into place, and you get this sense of pride, you get this sense of energy, and of course it's going to inspire our artists right now to go forward, because we can still make that kind of stuff, but without all the woke BS that goes around it. I'm curious to go a level deeper and get into this whole, like, you're good at presenting this thing with an edge, and you mentioned people like Johnny Rotten, right? So where is that? You have this quote by Roger Scruton about beauty on the About page of Scum. Very into that. I've been thinking a lot about beauty myself recently. But there's also still that wanting to push boundaries. That's very our thing too. You know, I know we both feel strongly about that. So where do you think like the tension is there, and where do you think the resolution is there, where even maybe the trad types might not see it in like rock and roll or punk, that there's still something for us there, and there's a way to kind of understand that in our context now?
It is difficult because it's the whole degeneracy argument, isn't it? And it's like, are we skating a fine line? What are we advocating for? It's quite difficult. But you know that people go far too far on that purity spiraling. For instance, you guys have a pint of beer as your for the posters for each episode, and I bet there's a few people that think that that's problematic, because I remember Laura Towler said she was going to the pub for her birthday and received some comments like, that's degenerate. Like, no, Europeans have drunk beer for a very, very long time. Beer is not a product of multiculturalism. We're allowed beer. We get to keep that one. So that's just an example of how this the Wheatfields attitude can get pretty weird. Now, I've been thinking about this a lot. because you don't want to say that there's anything wrong with all of this push for tradition, because there absolutely isn't. And there's so many accounts that I admire that are doing that. And there's nothing problematic in that. I just think something needs to run along in tandem to it that acknowledges where we are. So like I'm doing these mixtapes at the moment, so that one comes out every Saturday, and I'm going to host one on my channel at I think 7:00. If people want a little boogie. But like some of them are club music, which is the kind of stuff that I used to play, and I'm not going back to that life, but I respect that there's a lot of white people who've devoted a lot of their time to making this kind of stuff, and actually they are aiming for beauty in their own way. And this club music is a degenerate scene, and I don't encourage it. But there's something in a lot of the music, not the majority of it, but there's like nuggets, and it's worth. It's just about acknowledging where we are. It's about saying we're not in that wheat field place anymore. We're in a modern world. You have to acknowledge that that's where we are, else we're not going to be able to reach people, I don't think.
Yeah, well, there's different styles. First of all, we have to always understand that you can't just project and make everyone have your tastes. That shows a lack of maturity, and we need our people to be, everyone involved in this, to know that maybe you have a certain taste and the other guy next to you has a very different taste, but we need to have the language and the frames to understand how it all kind of fits together. That's why I'm excited to see the kind of thing that you're doing, to have conversations like this. And also there's as we've been talking about, the outreach angle. If you go, and again, I'm into the folk traditions. I talk about it. There are people who know me primarily for that. I just posted and talked about Midsummer. But I can take a step back and realize, Nick, that if I was coming into this for the first time right now, or putting myself in the shoes of someone who's coming into this fresh right now, and all the Instagram accounts and all the Twitter accounts and everything is purely only the wheat fields, that already feels a little too insular. That feels like there's if you don't get this one specific aesthetic, you're not in the club. And that's not, we're trying to wake our people up. We're trying to save and heal our people. And what I was really, the jolt of energy that I received when I saw what you were doing is knowing that this is just it's going to fly under the radar of the rational mind, and it's going to hit a lot of young people that grew up with this stuff. These are their most recent points of reference: 80s, 90s, early 2000s popular culture. Mm-hmm. So I think it's extremely important stuff. And I'd like to hear if you have any more to say to that before Jason gets to questions from the chat. If you could please also just talk a little bit about your growing relationship with White Art Collective. Of course, they're our friends here in the States, and we all have a similar mission. I know I can speak for Jason too in saying we both love seeing that you and the White Art Collective are getting together. There's this more cross-Atlantic symbiosis with our arts and culture things going on.
Well, in terms of what you say about how there's this traditional style, and then what we're doing is fresh and different to that. I really don't want to give myself too much creative credit, because it's very much just whack a bunch of stuff together that I honestly like. My tastes haven't really changed along with my politics. I still like all of the stuff that I used to like, and it turns out all of that stuff is now demonized. So it was already on my side. I was already flying the flag for all of this stuff anyway. I just get the opportunity to show it all off again. And it's so strange that comedy that I grew up with, now just pepper a bit of that in, that's political activism. It's mental that that's the world that we live in. So I don't know. This is me and Lucy going, you know what? I know that there are purity spiralers in our midst, but this is who we are, and we're not ashamed of it, and this is what we like. And And that's what art has to be unapologetic and authentic. You should never come from a place where you're like editing yourself too much because you're scared, oh, what will they think of this? I mean, you want it to be good, but it's got to be you. And yeah, if it was a Wheatfield Pete's, it wouldn't have been me. Yeah, you asked about White Art Collective as well. I'm so excited about how things are looking going forward, because I've been aware of those guys pretty much since day one of starting my channel. They were some of the first people that they just bounce straight into your inbox and go, hi. You know, they're so lovely.
Yeah, they're like that. They're like that. Yes.
They're the best bunch in the chats as well. As soon as one of them is anywhere, if I'm interviewing one of them, then all of them are there, just popping off in the chat. So excited. I love the community that they've fostered there. So there's already this wonderful network to work with. You know, we're building up a platform where it's really just about getting as many eyes in the same place as we can. Like, we're casting as wide a net as we can and writing it in such a way that it won't put people off, but the stuff that we're actively promoting is all very much us. We're not really promoting artists who are like just thinking about it, if you know what I mean. So it's supposed to be a bit of a pipeline thing, and it's just wonderful that there's this group already set up that are doing exactly what we want. They you know, if one of them has an album coming out, they send it to me. We'll have a streaming party on my channel. And we had one of them on Thursday night. And I swear you could feel the energy from the chat on your laptop. And there weren't even... It was amazing, because there weren't even people playing live for this one. I literally just pressed play on this wonderful compilation that they'd done. But I think there were 130 people in my chat. And it was so strange that you could feel it, because I stream every day pretty much, and it's always nice, it's always pleasant, but this was very odd, because I wasn't talking to anyone. It was just the messages were so lively, and the stickers, but it really felt like we were onto something new there with hosting art on a streaming service, so that it's around the world, but people are brought together because, you know, they agree on the things that we do, and they just want to celebrate other people creating stuff. There's no downside to any of this. It's so wholesome. So I'm really glad that we're in the position to be able to do it.
That's really fantastic. And I really want to just add that we need to be creating, as long as our art is coming from our biosphere, as long as it's coming from our heart and soul, then that's the kind of art that we embrace. It doesn't matter if it is a particular bent that, like, let's just use music, for example. If it's country music or if it's synth, I mean, Garage Party, we play everything, a wide range of music and poetry. And as I say, we'd like to see some painting and some sculpture and everything that is possible. And I know that the kind of thing, if you are a genuine, and let me just interrupt myself too, if you have any questions, while we are still on with Nick, for myself, for Jared, for Nick, please tag me as No White Guilt in the live chat, and tag Jared George as well. And you can also financially gift over on Entropy, which is up and running, or you can post your questions in the question widget over there. And you can financially gift on Cash App as well, if you feel so moved. So if you are coming from that place, then it's okay for it to be country. It's okay for it to be synth. It's okay for it to be heavy metal. And we need to be in a place where we are accepting of all of these different genre that the white soul, the white spirit, the white biospirit is able to create. As we say, the spirit of the West, you cannot restrain his hand. He makes us in a great many hues, hair color, eye color, etc. And so we embrace all of the creation of the spirit of the West as manifested and projected through us. And that's going to mean that there's going to be a variation of art. And Jeff over at White Art Collective and the other folks, the other heroes over there, they embrace that wholeheartedly. That is exactly what we should do. And there should never be a time when we're saying, oh, not that kind of music, or not. And in fact, we'll know when somebody is being subversive of the work that we are doing for white well-being if they do come in and try to say, oh, well, not that expression. Because as long as it serves white well-being in some shape or form, in other words, are we going to bring more white people into service to white well-being by way of an art that an entire category of white people enjoy, then that's a positive thing. Now, if somebody's going to create something that is going to serve white ill-being, and we see that in the world all around us, it's very easy to identify what is serving white ill-being, what is harming us, what's deleterious. Then that is something that legitimately can and will be excluded. But everything else is welcome. And it's also important to state that and Mr. George has made this point several times, every single work of art that you create doesn't have to say something white positive in it. But if you are a white positive individual, then that's going to come through in some or more pieces that you create, music-wise, poetry-wise, fiction-wise, whatever it might be. And so we need this because this culture is the clothing that creates that community. We have the psychological defense in going free, but this is the clothing that goes around the community that's going to make all of our brothers and sisters out there look and say, what's going on over there? Why is everybody laughing and partying over there? Over here, they're white erasing the shit out of us. But over there, they're throwing a party. So why is everybody so healthy and happy over there? Let me go have a look at that and see what's going on. And guess what, ladies and gentlemen, all those white people, they're going to choose us. And if that means that one part of our community has to be jacked up pickup trucks with guys with the latest NASCAR hat on, and in another part it means something completely different. It means people who are going to be maybe reflecting and reviewing some of our greatest artists of all time, and looking at the Da Vinci works and etc. Then that is all going to be included. It's all going to go together because these are all manifestations of the biospirit of the West, and we love and embrace them all. We like variety. It's been perverted to undermine us, but we like variety, and our people have endless variety. I mean, for God's sakes, just look at it. I mean, but what do we end up doing? We end up looking at entire spectra of the white positive experience and saying, well, no, not any of that, because I've learned that group over there, well, they're dumb, and that group over there, they're Boeotian, and that group over there is something else. No, instead, drop all of these alien interests and embrace different hues and versions of your own biospirit, and you'll find harmony that Nick was talking about you've never seen before. And once you do experience that resonance with something that comes from the biospirit that's inside of you, to whatever degree that particular hue exists, you'll find happiness and meaning that you did not find anywhere else before. You can look forever in Vietnam or in Saudi Arabia, and you'll find plenty of things that are beautiful or what have you, but nothing will resonate with you because it's not coming from you. So let's see, we have a question, and this is not necessarily an artistic one. Well, I guess the statue's artistic, but our great friend and participant, Tall Kevin, over on the question widget, has asked Unwashed about what does he think about what Churchill is saying as he looks up and sees his statue being covered to keep it from being destroyed. Yes, covered to keep it from being destroyed. What are your thoughts on not just the Churchill statue and Churchill looking up from, I assume, hell in this case, but all of our statues being white erased right now in the UK?
I mean, it's tragic and horrible and shocking. But what the sort of silver lining to that is that we knew this was coming. We saw this coming a mile off. This is no surprise to us. This has a sense of rolling inevitability. But that's not the case for everyone else in the country. For everyone else, this is a shock. This really has woken people up. As I say, the BBC, it's a fantastic one for waking people up to that, because no one serious in the country thinks that this is legitimate or that this should have happened. I'm sure you've all seen the footage of the statue being rolled off the harbour in Bristol into the water. Have you seen this one? It's probably the most famous one from the UK. That city is a monoculture. That one is basic. It's Bristol. It's our version of Portland, Oregon. So that's why that has happened there. But there's also footage of they tried to get Baden-Powell, who set up the Boy Scouts, they tried to get his statue removed in Dorset, I think it is. And the local community is nothing like the community in Bristol. It's people who care about their history, their culture, their people, their town, and they came out to defend it and said, no, you're not having our statue. And it has drawn out all factions who are pro-British, which in essence is pro-white. They might be resistant to discovering that, but these are all people that are happy to wave a Union Jack. And that was something that was really shocking, actually, because there was a time when burning the Union Jack would have been frowned upon at the very least. And there was footage of someone climbing up the Cenotaph War Memorial and trying to set fire to our flag, and there were police all around. There were police right there that could have yanked this woman down and prevented this. And you just think about any other time in history, the police standing by, just their backs turned to something like that. And normal people see this and they ask what's happening. There's a big split at the moment. The veterans from our army who have, they have it drummed into them that they are defending their nation and their people, and they understand what the word nation means as well. They understand that it's not a civic identity that's just attached to a passport. But they are the ones who are going out defending the statues, and they are giving the police hell, not through fisticuffs, but they are telling the police exactly what they think and that they're ashamed of them and they don't understand what they're for anymore. And I think that's really interesting, because I can acknowledge we've lost the police. We absolutely have. They don't let anyone in the police force unless they've been completely brainwashed by this stuff. If you were resistant to the brainwashing, you would drop out. That's what the filtering process is. There's none of our people in the police, hence the grooming gang scandal. But the army, I think, is different. The army, I just don't think that you can send the army off to fight a war that they ultimately shouldn't be fighting. But I don't think you can have an army without national pride. So this is where I think the plan might let itself down, because our veterans are so angry about this, and it's good to see.
That's a great couple of great points there, and especially the one that you made right away, I think, which was, we have seen this coming, and we have been telling people that this is going to happen. And in fact, right up on Going Free, we've been talking about that this is going to happen next, and then it happened right on cue. But the general public, they don't. It's stuck in the anti-white narrative. This is a big shock to them that, what do you mean they're suddenly allowed to tear down and white erase us from our civilization? Another great phrase that we should be using with our brothers and sisters out there is that we're being white erased, because that forces them into a people that is being victimized. And remember, ladies and gentlemen, for everybody who thinks that, we should never acknowledge our victimization, there are so many reasons why that's important to do. But one of the main ones is that when you are victimized, you gain the right to self-defense. And it's a moral right. And white people, we can't act outside of a moral framework. So gaining the moral right to self-defense is so important. And I will just continue to drum this into people, especially those who say, don't ever acknowledge that we have been injured somehow. It's really dumb.
Now, there's a big difference between succumbing to victimhood and acknowledging it, I think. Right. That's the key difference there.
Very well stated. Now, let's see, what else do we have here? Oh, now this is Volkish Warrior asking about thoughts on Lauren Southern coming back.
Well, it's interesting because this, I'm actually interested in this big tent thing at the moment. And okay, here's my thought. She's come back this week. This is also the week when people like Steven Crowder, he had a meltdown, I heard. I haven't seen this, where he got cut off on YouTube when he started talking about racial crime statistics. And Charlie Kirk, similarly, has been throwing these kind of bones out, basically acknowledging the race problem, acknowledging one group's acting like this, one group is acting like this. And we're being told that this group is much worse than this group, when it's very, very clearly not true. There is no conservative that can argue a race-blind point of view at the moment. So that's the reason that I'm interested to see, why would you dive in now if you were going to straddle that line? Like, there's no place for someone to jump in going, hey, let's all get along, let's all be friends, let's try and build these racial bridges. Not right now. So
but didn't she say something to that effect? Didn't she say something to that effect of sitting on the fence or just watching it and observing it?
I don't really know, because I understand, like, not wanting to pitch your wagon to one horse. I mean, I'm trying to remember exactly what she did, because it paled in comparison to what the boys in her team did. If you remember all the dirt on Hope Not Hate, like I remember that Lauren Southern was speaking to these people, but she didn't wake up and spot a bottle of champagne in the corner and realize she was wearing no clothes, with Hope Not Hate next to her in bed, which apparently was the story about George and Kaylin. So I literally can't remember what Lauren was supposed to have done compared to those two. So that's one thing. Honestly, I'm kind of just happy to see, like, action. Any news is good news at the moment. I don't know what to expect out of this. But I would be very, very surprised to see her trying to angle any kind of centrist line at the moment, because I don't understand how you could. So I'm interested to see how it develops. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Actually, if you could fill folks in on her comeback, because what she said that indicates that she's back, because a lot of people are unaware that she has made any sort of declaration.
Right. There was a video that went up. It's about 17 minutes long. And I'd actually been, like, thinking about her as a sort of case, because I am interested in it's sort of women attempting what is quite a masculine role. The way that she approached this before, I think there was a reason it had a bit of a sort of Icarus storyline to it, where it just went up and up and up and then suddenly down. And I do think it has something to do with this being a very volatile and unforgiving environment for young women. So, you know, frankly, she did go away and do everything that you would want her to do. She went away, got married, and had a child. So I don't know. I'm interested in how a girl can win in this arena, because Laura Towler does absolutely everything right and still takes the hail of bullets like mad. Just people still say whatever the hell they want to her. Incredible amounts of disrespect on the internet. And I look at all the girls in our scene, and I just think, is there a way to come out of this unscathed? And I'm increasingly convinced that there isn't.
Yeah, when it comes to our ladies and their participation, there are the first thing that they need to appreciate if you are going to participate as a content producer or something of this nature, i.e. Laura Towler, that number one, the anti-whites, and we have seen this forever, and I know we're running short on time, so I'll just very quickly say this. This started way back when Facebook was new. That as soon as a white female would start saying something positive about the white positive sphere, would start saying something positive about our people, the anti-whites, now I'm not talking about the run-of-the-mill scumbag, malefactor out on the street corner, the brilliant anti-whites, they immediately acknowledge that, look, we cannot allow their women to speak up, because if we allow their women to speak up, when we attack their women, that will excite the desire to defend the white men, the white women. And so we can't have that, because then you'll have instant unanimity, and then you'll also have families being created in this identity of a people being victimized and the retaliation against those victimizers. So they relentlessly attack 100-fold what they do for male content creators, the females who speak up. And there are many different ways that they go about this. Some of them are really overt, where they present themselves as anti-whites, and they make threats about, well, we know where you live, and because they know that women are more easily frightened than our men. We know where you live, and we'll get to your children, and we'll be at your windowsill at night or whatever. And other times, they present themselves as members of our community, and they come up with just this absolutely acerbic types of comments, things to burn them down, the exact kind of comments that really hurt women, and they know will hurt women, particularly, things about their looks, and will just stick with them long after the comments have been made. So you have that whole category. And by the way, inside that category is this group that we refer to, this tactic that we refer to as blowfishing, where we called it that because of the relationship to the catfishing phenomenon, where they show up, they use some sort of avatar of a very attractive man, usually military, police, or firefighter, something of this nature. And then they'll say to the woman, oh, I'm really interested, something special about you. They get them engaged in some sort of conversation where they get compromised, share some photos. And then they say, proving exactly what I'm saying right now, it happens again and again, and this is why we named it and talk about it. And then they say, just go away. Don't talk anything more online about positivity for white well-being. Don't support any more of these other content producers. Just go away, and nothing will ever be said about you. But if you continue to participate, if you continue to share your opinions on your Facebook or whatever it might be, on your Gab, on your Twitter, if you continue to do that, then we're going to release the photos you've shared. Then we're going to release these compromising conversations that you've shared with us. So this is clearly an anti-white tactic to undermine the building of community in the white positive sphere, and to prevent us from actually getting our feet under us and going a proper direction. Having said that, then you also have what is much smaller, but regrettably people put far too much focus on, and that is a lot of these young guys in the white positive sphere. Sometimes it happens with older ones, but a lot of these young guys who are fatherless, they've grown up with single mother households, and they've never learned how to speak to not only not to women, but to men too. We see it all the time. I've talked about this before, about there are certain male content producers out there whose fathers are so effete or not present that they will gladly insult the hell out of a man who could whoop their ass over the internet. They'll just insult the hell because they never learned. The father was never there to say, son, let me show you that you have no strength. And show you what it's like to be put in your place. They never had that because they had a mother that as soon as they reached 11 or 12 or 13, they could overpower their mothers. And so right at the beginning of puberty, so they never learned. And then it's these guys, a consequence of anti-whiteism that goes by the name of feminism, results in so many of these single mother households, which I know that there are other times with single mother households are a consequence of the guy being a total piece of filth, or the guy dying, or something like this. But in most of these cases, these young lads are growing up without fathers because it was a decision made by the mother, just got bored with the husband or whatever it might have been. He didn't obey every whim that she had. And then these boys grow up and they disrespect women. They're also disrespecting men, but it's the women who then find it most troubling because they can't just physically take it to these guys if they end up meeting them in public. So it's these two categories, primarily the anti-whites, who make this a psyop, but then some amongst our own. We have to be of the mind that if anyone, and this is what happens over here in Work for White Wellbeing, if anyone is slandering our female content producers because they're female, they're gone from the community. It's not even considered for another moment, because if they are producing positive content for our people, if they are making an impact that is salubrious in some way, they're staying whether you like it or not. And we want them out there. They're bringing more women over, and your slanderous comments are not. So these young guys that didn't have fathers, I will go ahead and be the father figure. And if you need me to whoop your ass so that you can learn respect when it comes to treating our brothers and sisters out there, particularly, I know you're really brave when it comes to pushing around our sisters, then I will happily meet with you and we can teach you some respect. So our women need to appreciate, though, now having said that about the guys, our women need to appreciate who produce content, that the majority of this is from anti-whites. Some of it is from boys that grew up and never become men, no matter how old they get, without fathers, and that we have created a morality here that protects you. So do not run away. Do not stop producing content because you have some loser or some anti-white saying negative things to you. You'll always have classy people like Mr. George and Unwashed who will come and say to these guys, no, this, and by the way, we'll just also say, because we're not conservatives here, women are not angels. Women are human beings. There are good ones and there are wretched ones. And when we come across wretched ones, we will push them right out of the community. If they are harming white well-being, they will go out of the community just as easily. So Nick, any thoughts on that? And then we will be anything I just said there, and then we will begin the wrap-up process. It's always a great thrill to be able to be on with you, a true artist. And think about this, ladies and gentlemen. You know, we talk about this, and I'll give it to Nick. When we recapture, and as we are recapturing our destiny in little bits every single day, and individually and communally, and this will continue to grow, it will be our people who will be writing the history of who were our greatest artists. So Nick is going to be somebody that our writers are going to talk about in the future. Somebody who stood up, somebody who was a creator of art, somebody who said, no, I don't care that I'm this little individual in this giant, and all the more are these folks going to be lauded, and all of you out there, because you are standing up against, you know, this absolute monstrosity, this colossal anti-white entity. Think about, are there any other stories in our history where that happens? I don't think so. Are there any other stories where it's like one man against an entire army? Well, that's what it's like today. So the stories will be glorious. That'll be written in years to come. But Nick, I throw it over to you, brother.
Oh, well, I don't feel like one man. Not as part of this. No, this is all about bringing people together. Like, if it was just me making videos without the community, I wouldn't have bothered at all. At all. That's what's propelled me forward. You were initially asking about the woman question, which, yes, I do have plenty of thoughts on that one. I've been observing it quite keenly, and my viewpoint now is this. Guys, we're in a scene where it's about 90% male, 10% female. Now, my group on Telegram, which I implore everyone to join, the chat group, I'll whack the link in the chat now. It's actually got quite a lot of ladies in there, and they have nice chats. We post pet pictures and such like. It's quite chill. But basically, the pattern I've noticed is, if this small minority of women that we have are saying there's a problem with toxicity in this community that we call nationalism, there is a problem with how we treat women, there is a problem with the attitude and the expectations that you place on women, and there's definitely a problem with cutting down women who are already on the right track. Okay, everyone's broken in one way or another, but if they're already showing up to our events, if they're already in the chat supporting everything, what are you doing by being so critical? This is ridiculous, because a big difference between men and women is that when men have a problem with something, say a community, they'll speak their mind and try and fix it forcefully. But the majority of women will just leave. They'll just say, this isn't for me. I'm going to go find something else, some place where they don't treat me like this. And there's no way of us knowing how many women we've lost to that, because they won't speak up about it. They've just left. They made no noise. So that's the pattern I've noticed, is that there's lots of women saying that this is a problem, but there's more men saying, no, it's not. And so my message to them is, I don't think you get to say that, because our brains, we recognize the difference, the massive biological difference between men and women. And it's all about everything. It covers everything. It covers thought processes, how sensitive the two genders are. Everything about men and women is a duality that's supposed to be very, very different. One of the massive problems we have at the moment is that the world says you're the same. You must achieve the same. It's basically saying women ought to be as tall as men. and we live in an unfair world if that's not the case. But it's not the case. That's not true. There's different talents on different sides. And this is my thing with the Lauren Southern question at the moment, is I do think that she was competing in a male arena, which is this sort of this political out there with a microphone, being combative with people right in their face. Like, traditionally, that is the job of the man, not so much the journalist side of it, but the combat, the fact that it's at the edge of what's going on. It's not like being a mother or there's so many girls that I know in our network that just help in interesting ways. They're there to sort of support rather than going out there and doing the battle. And I wonder whether she got treated like a man the whole way through because she was in a man's arena. And this is why I think that, like Laura, as I said earlier, faces this vitriol. And I wonder whether it is just because people go, yeah, I'm going to treat you like a man. And it's just not okay to do that. Don't treat any women like men. That's what the left wants you to do. That's what anti-whites want you to do. Treat them as, sensitive creatures. Men are supposed to be harder than women. So don't treat them like this. And if they say there's a problem, listen to them.
Thank you so much for that, good brother. I completely agree, especially when it comes to our cute little ladies like Laura Towler. We really love her and the work that she's doing. Let's see. We might have lost Mr. George, but we might have him back. So why don't we go ahead, Nick, and give us your final thoughts, and let us know where everybody can find you and any projects that you're currently. What can we be excited about coming from Nick and Scum?
Okay, well, the next thing on my Unwashed Season 2 channel, but by the way, I'll premiere every video that I do on my DLive channel and on my Telegram channel because I don't trust YouTube to stay up. It's almost like, I don't know, I'm just waiting for that one to get hated to death. But I am going to do a dramatic reading of James Poulter's article about me, Mark, and Lucy, and various others. The Iconoclast was mentioned in there, and shouts to all my UK patriotic gropers massive. It's a hit piece on all of us together. So I'm going to, put that with some dramatic music and some epic film footage. Well, what else have we got coming up? Please go to wearescum.com and read the professional articles and stuff. I'm going to hit play on my mixtape, which will be on my DLive channel in about 20 minutes. So we can all hang out there and listen to that. It's supposed to be sort of nostalgic music. I've done an intro for it so people can hear it there. We've got an episode of Scum coming at 7 tomorrow. And in general, just follow my DLive and my Telegram because those are the ones that are least likely to get taken down. There's a Twitter as well, but I think if you've got the DLive and the Telegram, you're pretty set, really.
All right, actually, that's a good question. Could you please write your Telegram in the private chat, and I will share it in the live chat right now.
Yeah, sure.
While we have everybody. Mr. George, while we're doing that, why don't you give us your final thoughts and what you will be doing next, good sir?
Are you able to... I'm broadcasting from Antarctica here. Are you able to hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
All right, because it's breaking up a little bit. Again, everybody, this should be the last tap on an old machine. I just got a new computer. It's sitting right next to me, so it should be up and running next week and have the processing power to handle all of this white positive energy. But yeah, Nick, it's been great speaking to you as always. Love what you're doing, for our full support, and look forward to more. On that note, on the theme of what we're talking about today, I've mentioned this a bit, and I'll tell a bit more about it when the time comes, but I've been squirreling myself away, working a lot on music. It's really my main thing, and it hasn't factored into what I do publicly as the Great Order yet, but that is all about to change, and I'm very excited about that. So it's a big part of how I will be contributing culturally. So that is what I'm working on. Of course, my site is thegreatorder.com. Contact me, see past articles, videos, t-shirts, all kinds of content that I've done. And Jason and I have the shared site, the afterparty.tv. All of the shows are cataloged there. It's the hub of the media we do together. And it's also a hub of things you guys do. So much is community generated now. as we were saying, we have our ties with White Art Collective, and really are part of White Art Collective when you think about it. And we post their music and mashups people do. And Jason now has the Chuck Martell's Garage Party he does every Friday night, U.S. time, usually sometime between 6 and 8, depending on what's going on. But presenting a lot of our musicians and also some poetry and short form videos and things. That's kind of a listening party as well. We were talking about that a little earlier with Nick. That seems to be a thing where there's just kind of these listening party streams. As you know, you were saying you've done that, Nick, and that is Jason's done that with the Chuck Martell thing now too. And that's a great medium for like when albums come out or people premiere new works. We're all inspiring each other and sharing. But everyone, I just want to leave you on that note again. Can you feel the momentum? This is where it's at. We are building a culture. We know there's a lot of darkness right now. Please do stay safe. We know these are crazy times. But again, as I said earlier, if you missed it, today is midsummer. It's a summer solstice, very important time for our peoples, all of our peoples. Only a few of them currently keep it as potent as it used to be. I know midsummer is really big in Sweden, but would that comes back to all of our lands, all of these festivals, our symbols, our art, our culture is important. Our people wouldn't be as lost if all of these things had been reinforced in us from birth, if we knew the feeling of our culture and we were enmeshed in the experiences, the rhythms, the symbols, the ethos of it, all of it. And that's what we're reclaiming. So we're all united in that aim. Nick, I know you're with us on that. So wonderful speaking to you, and we'll all speak again soon. My love to the community out there. And Jason, take us out until next time, please.
I will indeed. It is time to tap out, ladies and gentlemen. But a fantastic show today, and a big thank you to Nick for staying a little longer with us than we have told him that we would be.
Oh! Wait, Nick,
yes?
did you you were breaking up before? So maybe you said this, but Nick, did you mention you're also going to be on our friend Tim Murdoch's show later?
Yeah, I didn't slide that in. Yeah, it's a hell of a busy day for me. Yeah, I'm on White Rabbit Radio at 11 o'clock my time, 5 p.m. your time. So that was why I was so paranoid this morning. I was like, it's 5 p.m.
I think that would be
different 5 p.m.
If it's 5 o'clock. Oh no, is he Central?
He's
Central. Okay, so that's
too confusing for a Brit like me,
right? Okay.
But yeah, White Rabbit tonight. Yeah, that's a big deal.
Sorry, we live on a continent here, and so we have a few different time zones in the U.S. But yes, everybody, go check Nick out later on Tim's show. Tim's a great friend of ours as well. You're in good hands. He's like a classic radio guy. He's a pro.
Oh, he's amazing.
Jason and I have been on his show. He's been on our show a few times. Yeah.
No, I'm really looking forward to that.
I wanted to make sure to get that in. So please continue.
Yeah, so I think that's at 11 o'clock our time. Hannah is asking in my chat, but it'll alert you. Go sub to them on DLive, because DLive does alert all of us when you go live, which is better than YouTube, suppressing you in all in all search results, never notifying you. So it's worth it. But yeah, so I've got another interview in a few hours. But I love it. I'd love it. There's nothing I'd rather be doing. Saturday's supposed to be my day off, but you don't really need days off when you're doing this. Always a pleasure to chat to both of you guys. You've always got the perfect attitude. I'm not even worried. We can't fail at this rate, can we? It's going too well.
It is indeed. We're growing rapidly, and I was just telling some folks, I think it was the last Sunday on Going Free Stream, I was mailing out flyers, No White Guilt flyers, and books all over the world. Places you definitely would wonder, why would English-speaking leaflets going there? But places like the country of Georgia and Latvia and Estonia, all of these places, of course, the UK, all over the world. And so we're very excited. We're growing. It's a global thing. White roses, beds of white roses are beginning to bloom all over the world, and this will continue and it will grow stronger. I want to thank everybody for being here today. We may have had a financial gift from Zero Talent of $5, so thank you if it goes through. Right now, it's actually saying that it's waiting on you, so I don't know what you might have to do, my dear friend, but he's a great participant in the community. So thank you so much, whether it goes through or not. And I want to thank everybody who asked questions and participated in the stream today. Do go and watch Nick over with Tim. Tim's a great guy doing magnificent work, and we expect great things from him and his community. And let's spotlight some folks I saw fly by in the chat today. I saw Alfarius Amagon, and Hiereth was even here with us, and Jerry was also. Azus was here. I saw spotlight on you. Is this Sylvan Dagger? I saw you in the chat today, and Jeff of White Art Collective was here today as well. Great to see all of you folks, and I want to give a big thank you to Bartleby, one of our new moderators, who was moderating today's show. Thank you so much, brother, for being here and doing the work that you are doing in service to white well-being, protecting what we are doing, because we know that the anti-whites would like nothing more than to say something objectionable in a live chat. I was just reading about somebody who is some big channel who got reprimanded for comments in their live chat. So thank you for the work that you're doing to protect us from the anti-whites and the things that they would like to do to us. But a big thank you to Unwashed, Nick here, a great guy. A big thank you to Mr. George for everything that he does to make the shows magnificent, educational, and spiritually enriching. And so a big thank you finally to all of you for your service to white well-being. I've said it before, and it is worth repeating. You all bear the blunt in your families and your households of being called the bad one, or the anti-white slur, this or that, the heretic. And you should realize that in truth, you are the best in your family. You are the best in your extended family. You are the best in your community. You are the best in your state or province. You're the best in your country. You are the best on planet Earth. And in time, you all, every single one of you, will be remembered for that glory. Thank you all for being here with us, and we look forward to seeing you again next time.